Welcome back, everyone, to Engage at Home, brought to you by Montgomery County's Caregiver Support Program. I'm very pleased today to welcome Lorena, who is with the Accessible Programs of the National Gallery of Art. Welcome, Lorena, and please let people know a bit more about yourself and the program.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm so pleased to be here with you all. I work in the Education Division at the National Gallery of Art, and I run accessible programs. And that means a couple of things, really. It means that we run programs for certain audiences who need some accommodation. So we have tours in sign language, we have tours in verbal description for visitors with vision loss, we have tours designed for folks with memory loss and their care partners. We have programs for families shaped by sensory processing disorders such as autism. But I'm also very interested in the intersection of where best practice for some audiences becomes a really good practice for everybody. So thinking about what are some of the changes that we might make to what we think of as a public program that actually could benefit all visitors. So about half of my programs are designed specifically for people with disabilities, and about half of them are designed for the general public, because we find that what is ultimately a good accommodation for some people ultimately can sometimes be a really good approach for everybody.
And Lorena, I know that what's at your fingertips is the National Gallery of Art.
Yes. Yes, it is really a pleasure and an honor to work there when we are there in person. And to work with that collection. It focuses on European and American art from about 1400 to today. So it's a little bit specialized in its focus, but within that arena, within those centuries and those locations, it is quite deep. It always has surprises to reveal. There's always something new to learn. We're also acquiring new works of art all the time that are opening up new avenues of exploration, perspective taking for us. It's a great place to work. I still get a little surprised when they let me in sometimes. It feels like a real honor to be there.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. An area that I am very passionate about is your Just Us program. Would you give us an overview of what is the Just Us program?
Sure, very happy to. So the Just Us program started in the spring of 2017, and it is designed for people with memory loss and their care partners as equal participants. We realized that there are some other programs in Washington, D.C. for this audience, but we were really excited to think more about how art could help bring people together and help bring people together as visitors, but also with us as educators, as part of the general public at the National Gallery, and with our collection with original works of art in the galleries with these pieces, engaging and having conversations about them. So the program itself, when it was happening at the museum, would happen a couple of times a month for folks living at home, usually caring for loved ones. And that was we had a version of the program where a pair or trio of people could come on certain days. And so that version was really designed for people living at home and caring for husbands, wives, parents, any manner of relationships. We also accommodated groups coming from residences as well. So if an activity director or programs manager or somebody like that wanted to bring a group, usually they would have their own shuttle, and then they could come at any day and time that worked best for them. So there were a couple of different ways that the program was offered. But in the sessions, we spend usually 90 minutes with 2 or 3 works of art. So we slow down, we set up chairs so that we can be comfortable, we're not on our feet, and we're in these beautiful spaces with other people, with each other, with these works of art, and just sort of taking the time to settle in, to be quiet, to let thoughts and articulations be formed and then spoken. And it's really just a chance for us to connect in a much slower, more engaging way that I actually have found that I prefer to just about any other program. It's really a very special way of being with each other and sharing in a conversation.
It sounds very much like a classic turn of the previous century salon, where people would come, and the goal was not to rush through things. The goal was being reflective. So could you tell us more about what the hopes and goals from your side of what Just Us is?
Sure. And I love that connection to the salon and not rushing. We really savor these works, and we savor our time together by slowing down and being comfortable, setting up chairs so that we can be comfortable together when we were on site, and then now virtually as well. The goals for the program are really to create cognitive and social stimulation and spaces for people to come together and just be with each other and be with us. I work with the other educators in my department at the gallery, and those of us who work with the program are specially trained. So we have some background in working with this audience, but we absolutely look forward every week, every other week, to seeing our participants and having them back again. So just to have that social stimulation. We also hope to reduce caregiver burden, because we know that a lot of times family members and loved ones didn't sign up for this, to be caring for someone with memory loss. It's very difficult on many, many levels. So we want to give everyone a reprieve. And really the power in that is having a shared experience that's entirely in the present. It being in this program, we hope, takes away so much of that stuff that comes with the diagnosis, like medication reminders and doctor's appointments, and now it's time to get up, or now it's time for breakfast. When we're at the museum, we are equal participants. We're exploring together. Even as facilitators of this program, we are not standing there imparting information. We are part of the group as they explore. So the goals and hopes of the program are that people can connect in the moment and have a very real shared experience with each other. That's the most important, and with us. We like it when that happens, but we want to make sure that everybody has the space to connect with each other in a very authentic and genuine way. Since we've moved online, our sessions are now offered through Zoom, as is so much in our world these days. But we're finding, I think there was to be perfectly honest, at first when I thought about doing a virtual version of this program, it seemed so important to be in the museum together. But after leading a couple sessions on Zoom, I found out that what is actually so important are the people. And so it's not great, looking at these paintings on the computer, but it's still, there's so much value in coming together, even in a virtual space, and being together and still slowing down and having these amazing discoveries and conversations about works in the gallery's collection. One of the nice unexpected benefits of all of this is that we can explore pieces that are either not on view because they're traveling or because they're in storage. So we're looking at a lot of works on paper which can't be put up in the light for very long or very often. And we're also exploring works that are either in rooms that are always really, really crowded and noisy, so it would be really distracting, or in rooms that are too small. Some of our smaller pieces that are hard to do with the larger, or hard to see with the larger group. So we're trying to get into all the little nooks and crannies and storage spaces of the National Gallery by doing it in a virtual format. But the goal is the philosophy is still the same, where we're still coming together. We're still sharing and discovering together, even though it's through Zoom. It's still totally conversational. We ask everyone to sign on and turn their video on if they're comfortable doing so, have their audio on, and we have a very organic conversation, even though it is on a virtual platform now. So the goals and the hopes of the virtual program actually still mirror exactly the goals and the hopes of the program as it had been offered on site, and as it will certainly be offered at the museum again.
Thank you. I remember when I would visit my grandmother, who's passed now, but she was in her early 90s, and she had dementia. And what we would do is look at art books. This was back in the day before Just Us, and it was wonderful because it was an experience of storytelling. It wasn't about, what was the artist's motivation and, what is the rigid scholarly expectation of how you should be viewing this art. It was two people, and one of them with dementia, just having an emotive story experience. And I think that it sounds like that is what folk can expect through Just Us.
Absolutely, absolutely. So as educators, we do all of our research and we get our information about artists and works of art, and we have all of that ready. And you know, if we're leading a school tour, there may be certain content points that we have to hit. But when working with Just Us, we have all that information ready because people are curious. I mean, they want to know about the artists and they want to know about the history of the piece, but it's completely organic. There's something very liberating about just leaving it all behind and just seeing where the conversation takes us. And we might use the same painting for 4 different groups and have 4 very different conversations about it. So it also encourages us to really listen very carefully and actively, to slow down our minds so we're not, you know, ticking through all that stuff that we think is really interesting, and really just going with the flow of the conversation. It's an education for educators, really, and it's such a wonderful way to teach and to experience our collection.
Wonderful. And so you tapped on how this has changed now that it's all virtual. Tell us a little bit more, like people would go onto Zoom. How many folk tend to be in a group? You know, there's obviously your side with the facilitators. How many, family, friends are participating?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we usually get between 20 and 30 participants total, and we've split up into at least 2 rooms. So we try to have about 10 to 12 people in a room in sort of a breakout session. So everyone who comes to a Just Us session, which happens weekly now, will experience the same works of art, but they may be with a different facilitator who are all sort of tuned into leading the conversation in a similar way. So, but each group will sort of have its own interest that guides them through that conversation. So we will always have enough facilitators on hand to break up into smaller groups so we can really accommodate really as many people as would like to come and experience these pieces with us. So we just sign in, we welcome everyone to start, we share what the theme is. The works are always connected by a theme. That way they're not just 2 random pieces, although I guess they could be. And then we break it. Always there's sort of that kind of lull as we get people split up into the breakout rooms, but then you accept your invitation and head off into your smaller groups, and we have those conversations that way.
Oh, beautiful. I could actually imagine, particularly at the moment where families with particularly vulnerable members of their older adult population, they're not being able to all be together. I could imagine that this could be a lovely opportunity for both the person with, say the memory loss, and maybe their in-house caregiver, but maybe, one of their other relatives who would love to be part of this experience with their mum, their dad, their father, whomever. This could be a lovely way of having that experience as a care community, even though because of COVID, we're not all being together.
Absolutely, and that's such a great point. A lot of folks come and share a screen, so a husband and wife will, be in one screen, which is kind of nice for us. It means that we have to have fewer screens open to see who might like to say something. But we also have people who come sort of separately to have the experience together. So absolutely, if one person was signing on from a computer in one home and a friend or a family member wanted to also join us, people are more than welcome to do that. In that case, it's just important to let me know so I can make sure that you're in the same room once we break up, because we want to make sure that if you come to be together, that you're actually together. But that's a great point, and it is something that we do see people doing.
Wonderful, thank you. And it's so profound, because that's one of the things that I'm hearing a lot of, that grief of togetherness that people are feeling. And your program is very clearly a evidence-based program to have a profound experience, and it can be something that then that family group can enjoy virtually.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put a lot of the logistic details on, your website, your email address, contact details, but just step people through how often you're doing this and what is the process of registering, knowing that all the details will be on the Engage at Home channel where you found this episode?
Right, absolutely. So it's very easy to become involved. You just email me, and my email address is on our website, which will be posted. And the program happens every Monday from 2 to 3:15 Eastern. People from everywhere are invited to join us as long as it works out with the timing. So it's happening on a weekly basis. Once you've emailed me and given me the names of people who you expect to be there, and knowing that sometimes you might give both of your parents' name and one of them might not be able to make it one week, that's fine. But as long as I have the names of folks who will be coming and your email address, on Monday morning before each program, I send out a reminder that it's happening, because I don't know about anyone else, but I'm losing track of the days of the week pretty easily these days. And so we send out a reminder and the Zoom login information. The nice thing right now is that you do not have to register. If you can make it, great. Sign in at 2. If you can't make it for a doctor's appointment or something comes up, or just feeling under the weather or taking a nap, whatever it happens to be, you don't have to let me know. So
Good.
For the on-site program, when we were at the museum, we did ask for people to register in advance, but now it is a Zoom link and you just sign on if you can make it. And if you can't, we just hope to see you the next week. I'll keep you on my mailing list and send around that reminder and the Zoom link every Monday until you tell me to take you off.
Oh,
So we're trying to make it really as easy as possible. So cutting out as many steps as possible, sending out reminders, and it's just a question of logging on if you can make it.
beautiful. And I like the way that you're doing that, because we all know that when you're a caregiver, things do come up. And to have it that there's absolutely no expectation of having to put in an apology, like for a caregiver, even putting in an apology can be another burden.
Sure.
How long are each of the sessions once they start?
They're between 60 and 75 minutes, which is a
Lovely.
little bit different than at the museum. We're finding that with Zoom, about 75 minutes is a nice a nice amount of time. And so sometimes we go a little bit shorter than that. Sometimes we go a little bit over. So if you're free, always people are invited to stick around for the end of the conversation. But we aim for about 75 minutes, but it may go over a little bit.
Yeah, but that's a nice amount of time. I think people would feel very comfortable devoting that time at 2 o'clock too. It's lovely. It's after lunch, and it's a nice time just to settle down. And the good thing with Zoom is that it is a very accessible program. People can just sit down at their computers. There's a lot of, and I'll remind people when I put this up, I have sourced a lot of easy guides on how people can get to know Zoom. And so people can actually do that beforehand. So if this is the first time that they've heard about doing an activity with Zoom, they can do some test runs. Really impressed. Such a terrific program. We talked earlier about the amazing collection at the National Gallery of Art. People are probably curious to know, well, what kind of art experience are they and their loved one going to have at one of the Just Us programs? Could you give us a little teaser?
Sure. So a couple of recent sessions come to mind. The first is a little while ago, we did a session with the theme of letters. So we looked at a very early daguerreotype photograph by a famous duo named Southworth and Hawes. And they took showed a pair of women seated next to each other with an open letter in one of their laps. And we compared that to an early American Impressionist painter who had painted actually his daughter, this beautiful long blonde hair, reading a letter, but she's shown in front of an open window and the light is coming through and just igniting her hair. And it's all about the light and the way it moves through the room and the way it draws our eye to these different areas. So what I really like about that pairing is that they're held together by this theme, but the tone of the two pieces are very different. The scale is very different. The photograph is about 8 by 6 inches, so still big for a photograph, but 8 by 6 inches. And the painting is about 4 by 3 feet. And the
Wow.
photograph, this daguerreotype, is a work that is in storage, and it's rarely on view, and so we get a chance to look at it very slowly together. So that's one example. Another one that comes to mind is around the theme of balance. And the reason it comes to my mind is it includes two of my absolute favorite works of art. It's Vermeer's Woman Holding a Balance, which is a small painting. It's about 13 by 15 inches, and a print by Albrecht Dürer. So the Vermeer is in a very small room that we simply can't take large groups into. There's not enough space. And so by having the program online, we're able to linger with this painting in a way that just wouldn't be logistically as feasible in the museum. Although I hope that everyone does go to visit her because it's a great painting. And then this print by Albrecht Dürer is almost the same size. It's called Nemesis, and it shows a nude woman with kind of dumpy proportions. He's a very funny artist. We don't think of a 15th century artist as having a good sense of humor, but he did. And she's balanced on this ball, and she's sort of floating over a city view. And so she's balancing, and we compare that with the Woman Holding a Balance by Vermeer. But this is a print that, again, is in storage. It's not on view very often. So we're actually bringing together two pieces on the online format or platform that we wouldn't be able to do in the museum. So there's lots of comparisons and interesting works of art to view and experience at the museum, of course. But those are just a couple of examples of how we approach connecting works through a theme. They might be hundreds of years apart in when they were created or made in different parts of the world, but they may have this sort of interesting connection to consider and compare.
Mm. And you raise something that I think for many people, particularly our viewers who are up in Montgomery County, this new Just Us virtual platform takes away all those barriers of having to drive down into DC, find a park, navigate you and your loved one getting to the museum. Even though going to the National Gallery of Art is a gorgeous and wonderful experience, what we have now is a platform where you are bringing all of those same qualities and desires to have profound experiences for your participants, but for them, they can stay in the comfort of their home.
Yeah,
So
the gallery is a big place. It's easy to get lost. It's hard to find parking, absolutely. So this online version really breaks down some of those barriers. And while we hope that everyone full stop, everyone in the whole country and the whole world can come to the National Gallery, of course, we know that's not always the case. So this is a nice way to have an alternative.
Absolutely. And I congratulate you and the whole team for all the effort that I'm sure this has actually been to pivot from in-person to now virtual, and to have it that it means something.
Yeah, it has taken a lot of work, but it pays off. We look forward to it every week just as much now as we did when we were back at the museum.
Yeah, wonderful. So I want to thank you for your time today. It's always an inspiration, and I wish you well during this time. And I want to thank our viewers that you have been engaged at home. And if you want to learn more about this episode, please go back to the YouTube channel where you found this episode, and you will see all the links to the National Gallery of Art, their Just Us, and all the rest of their programs, how to connect and sign up. I want to wish you well, and please remember to stay calm.